platform, please have a name. All these user 1527453. No. Have a name, please. Help me to help you. Have an identity. The funny thing is, I'm not even telling you to. Let me not tell you the other one, because just write something. Mark Bleed says no, can you say about one glove? Let me so I'm talking about handshake. But Ibowo is also it could be that. It's possible. Maybe just a joke. Maybe people saw folks putting on gloves and the glove was not getting to the they're like, maybe that's what they were saying. But growing up, I always thought that it meant that if I want to shake your hand and your hand is finding its way to my gumpa, but maybe that's what you actually, maybe it's possible that your own understanding of that proverb is actually the correct one. It's actually possible. I think it's actually the correct one. Not that you're saying it, because that's Ibowo. But kini handshake in Yoruba. Let's quickly do that before we go to class. Kini handshake. We have elbow length gloves in the hospital. No. Oh boy, we're going to start on that class on hand gloves. If we're going by proverb, it's possible that when our folks, because we don't wear hand gloves in Yoruba land now, so it will be the colonialists wearing it. So maybe when they saw maybe going by what this brother is saying, maybe when they saw people wearing gloves where they reach elbow, they'd be like, say something else they did. But growing up, I always thought it meant handshake. Igbowo versus Ibowo. Ó ní Igbowo. Ló ń jẹ́ Igbowo, kò sí mi ò gbọ́ Igbowo rí o. Ó bọwọ́ mi náà máa ń sọ o. Àwọn kì í ṣe Igbowo o. Igbowo méjì. I've never met Igbowo before. Ǹjẹ́ kó gbà á lọ́wọ́. ẹ bá máa invent ní Yorùbá was lórí TikTok tọrọ lọ́hùn. Ìbọ̀wọ́ mọ̀ pé ń jẹ́ handshake o. But a word could mean two different things. Ìbọ̀wọ́ could be handshake. Ìbọ̀wọ́ could also be, but it's definitely the gloves that she meant. You know what? Whichever one it is, do your research. Whichever one is correct, please let me know tomorrow. Or no, not tomorrow is Saturday. Let me know on Monday. I'll also go and learn a bit more. But thank you for bringing up this stuff. Bowo, Dodomi. Natives. We can't have the China example in Nigeria, but that's what big ethnicities do. You can't be a small ethnicity with no consequence and be telling everybody what to speak in their places. I'm even very serious with this one. You cannot be what you are and be telling your people to stop speaking Yoruba. And this is not 1, 2, 3 people. It's like a group thing. Any small thing you are hearing, why are they speaking Yoruba? Why are they speaking Yoruba? And I told you earlier, they said Ashaka should stop speaking Yoruba because it was local. Well, guess who is the most streamed artist in Nigeria? The same local. Yoruba is global. And I see what you're saying, what you wrote in the comment section. They called me. They called me and said that you can now. Yoruba Buro. Only let us ask Google. Google now recognizes Yoruba compared to some people's language. Eburu. Shigba wo oya kama shigba wo fún yín ni. Well done. But it's true. I mean, AI, they're listening about AI. Great Tammy, what you're writing, I see you. I'm saying in our everyday kidney, we don't use words like that. I'm not saying you are wrong. I'm just saying I've never heard it. Have you ever had a conversation with someone that say, "Oh bowo" or "Oh bowo"? I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying I have not seen it. They're two different things. Anyway, Femilewa says because Yoruba is global, that is why it's annoying them. Converse one thing called Burukuni and Bob Burulena Bore. If a language is going global, and you want your own, I want to assume you also want good for yourself, then I would expect that you're also working to ensure that your own grows, not to pull that other one down. When you see concerts where everybody is speaking Yoruba language, Nigeria ló ṣe Yoruba o. Nigeria òyìnbó ló dẹ̀ fà, àwọn Gẹ̀ẹ́sì àwọn náà fà, àwọn náà fà gbogbo wàhálà yìí, àwọn náà fà. This whole Nigerian arrangement, and I'm glad with what we have, but this is not how to run a country. Run a country in such a way that people who are less, and I will say it, people who are less than others will tell those others how to do stuff. Inferiority. What's that? How things work is that China would say, in this country, these are want to run things in our space. The minorities will fall in. It's their land. And even China now, even when there is not, even the part that is not Han, don't say Han Chinese, because they are the majority, they're 92% of the nation. Think about it, one ethnicity is 92%, 55 other ethnicities now constitute only 18%. They can only have their say. Han Chinese will always have its way. Nigeria does not have that advantage. There's no single ethnicity. But in people's ancestral spaces, don't go there and constitute nuisance in the name of one Nigeria if they beat you. I don't like physical violence. So, but people are moving. You will say things in public in Yoruba land. It will get to a point people will start slapping you because the disrespect is too much. And I hope it never happens. Let me just make it clear. I don't like physical violence. I think it's wrong. But when you insult people in their land to a particular point, they will begin to respond. What happened last election? We have one Lagos. We own Lagos. Who owns this place? We'll remove their king. How you did that after the presidential election? How was the gubernatorial election in Lagos? Do people not learn? Just go everywhere talking anyhow. We have rights. Okay. They will show you left. Yaba left. Enough of that. Ijoba says physical violence is the only language because now see what they did to us. Especially when you're the one doing the nonsense. See what they By the way, I think I want to challenge those of us who are always shouting Yoruba people should do better. Please go to Sokoto and say it. They are also Nigerians. I will not one Nigeria. Let me talk like yes on Wiki. We are all one Nigeria. Go to Sokoto. All right, let's leave our wonderful brother. So let's do what Switzerland did. Let's do, and we're going to have another session on that. There's a book I want to recommend on that point. It's called Owl of the Nigerian Constitution. Okay, Papa actually went to great length to look at all the countries in the world. All. That man was something else. He looked at all the countries in the world and described the kind of political structure that each of them had. And there's something they discovered back then, and it's still true today, that when you have a multi-ethnic state, you have to have a federal system. It can't be unitary, and each ethnicity must be able to self-determine within that structure. Within that framework, they have to be able to do that. And I use several examples from Switzerland to Belgium to Canada to the UK to different parts. Whenever you have several ethnicities in one nation state, you have to create a structure that allows the ethnicities to have their freedom within their own spaces, despite the fact that they're in one nation. So they have a federal system, not a racist unitary idea, which is the only reason you go to Yoruba and you come to Yoruba and ask for us calls to speak the language you understand. If you don't understand, that's your business. We speak English, but we speak Yoruba. And by the way, some people's languages are going to extinction. I'm not mentioning anyone for now. They used to tell us back then in secondary school. I've mentioned it here before, but in this context, I don't want to mention the language. It's going to be an insult. But see, what they told us back then was that certain languages were going into extinction, and that words. This is actually serious. I'm actually very serious. This was in the 90s, early 90s. My teacher told us that there are certain words in our own language that are lost. There are certain objects, right? The words that they use in their own native language, they have substituted those words, with English words. So they use English words when they're talking about those things. Now, it's one thing space. It's another thing for you to lose your own words because of preference for foreign words. Which is why I tell people that you can take foreign words. I'm going to something else right now. You can take foreign words into your lexicon and add it to what you have, so you have multiple words for a particular thing. So you have synonyms. The way I've seen it is, it's either you're borrowing from outside or you're borrowing from dialects within the language. I'll give you an example. If I say akpoti, which is a stool, synonym for, I may just have to say otita, which is another word for akpoti in Eastern Yoruba land in Ekiti. So it means now that I have two words for one object, akpoti, otita. You can say ode, odede. That's the passage. But in Ife, it's orua. The point is, now you have multiple words, so your language becomes richer. But sometimes the word could also be foreign. So you can have something like iwuri and still have adura. It doesn't displace the other. It's just that you don't jettison what you have and say, I'll be calling the foreign one. But there are cases where what you have is actually a foreign word and just keep using it. E.g., albosa is foreign. So just use that word. And the same thing in English language. So you have words in English language that maybe they didn't exist in their own context and was introduced to them. For instance, cash. The word cash is not English. It's actually Persian. It was Persian and then go through Arabic into English language. Cash, sugar, lime, lemon, orange, all those words were not English words, but they are English words today. But they were all Persian and then adopted by the Arabs and so on and so on. And then some words are just Arabic, like rhythm is Arabic. Sabotage is French. Nonchalant is French. Languages grow like that, because even Akara is not in the dictionary, also a dictionary, right? So Yoruba can also take from, but it enriches the language. Not that you lose what you have because of preference for something foreign. And so what we do, and I think it's three ways, to be honest, from my own observation. Number one is that we can borrow words from other dialects within the language. Number two, we can take foreign words and make it ours. For instance, if the Arabic or whoever says albasa, we'll call it alubosa because we love vowels in Yoruba language. We love vowels. We love vowels. for some weird reason. Your name could be Balkis, we'll call you Bilikisu. We have to insert new vowels. We just love vowels. Okay, so make it ours, but we'll call it what you're calling. The other one is that we can create words for foreign objects, and many languages do the same thing. E.g., television. Even the word television is not English. It's not English. Tele is not English. Vision is not English. What Yoruba people do, we also now look at it. Okay, television. Sorry, what I said right now, I think some people are wondering where the words are Latin and German, but just to be sure, because I just felt it in my head that somebody's not like, it's not possible. It's possible. It's, in fact, it is. How did we get to all these things? We're discussing. I know we got here. I'll circle back to that later. All right. Many languages all across the world, I found it. It's Greek and Latin, not German. Greek and Latin. Tele is Greek. Visio, that's vision, is Latin. Television, you can call it English word, but it's not English. But it's English. Etymologically, the idea of tele is something far away. Vision has to do with sight. I'm watching television, so we call it television. Because they also did not have it from the beginning of time. It just started and they looked for a word for it. We make up words for. Sometimes we use, what we do is just like what they did. Instead of saying vision from afar, we say this machine captures sound and visuals, right? Sounds and images. So amo mawuran is descriptive. We think of television as a word, but television is actually two words of two different languages. So the brilliance of the English is not that they created a word that was not necessarily their own, but they borrowed things and made it theirs. But now it is theirs. But it's also based on what's the word now? Sometimes on observation, right, or on functionality of the object. If you're on TikTok, please power tap. This thing is showing inactivity. I know how I got here, so I'm going to get back to that later. The point I'm trying to make is that every language borrows from others, and the reason you will have that in England is one of the stuff we talked about, was it yesterday or 2 days ago, that the English history, let me put it this way, Western civilization is a product of a number of things, right? On one hand, is a product of the Greco-Roman philosophy or Greco-Roman culture, which is heavy, Greco-Roman culture, whose philosophy is largely or mostly Christian. Now, where did Latin come in for the English people? That was the language of Rome, and it was the language of the church. And that's why the Roman Catholic Church today still speaks, for the most part, they use Latin. Even back in the day, they will use Latin, whether you understood it or not, it is well with you. They say they are on here. Latin is now the language of the Vatican. So England would have gotten that Latin through that, because Rome colonized England, for Britain actually, for 400 years. Introduced Christianity to them, right? And they spoke the language. Rome itself had carried Greek around the world long before Christ was born, because Rome was fascinated with Greek culture. It was seen like as high culture. They had philosophy, they had theater, they had, I don't know if, I'm sure a lot of people would know this, that I was mentioning Socrates a lot yesterday. There's a play we enjoy in Yoruba language, or in Nigeria, because it was written by Yoruba man, though. The gods are not to blame, by Olarotimi. The truth of the matter is that that play was an adaptation of a Greek tragedy that was written by Sophocles. Sophocles was a Greek philosopher who wrote a play titled Oedipus Rex. I know this because as a young chap, when I first had that book, this was a long time ago, for some reason, when I get a book, I always read the front cover, the back cover, before I now read the stuff. So I read the front cover, I saw the title, the back cover. One of the things they wrote in that book, I still remember the back now, 3 Crown Publishers underneath. They wrote there that Olarotimi, something along the lines of, he successfully transplanted Oedipus Rex into African or Yoruba soil. So they saw them as, you know, it was Greek philosophy, it was Socrates, it was Plato, Aristotle, Sophocles, all these people. So that culture, the Romans, even when they were conquering the world, they took Greek culture with them. That's why, you know, you hear that the New Testament was written in Aramaic and Greek, mostly in Greek. This was because they were all under the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire was spreading Greek language. But they also had Latin, right? And the church used Latin. I mean, of course, these are different timelines, but so I'm talking about centuries apart. I'm cut it short. The point I'm trying to make is that by the time the English got this tube that could show images and picture, they fell back to the Greek and Latin in order to create a word for what they had, but was theirs. When we saw a TV, we called it a Arabo Moron. When we saw computer, we say a Rayarabiasha. It was fast. You type something. Why? Because we're using typewriter. If you use typewriter, then you have to this one you can just go to the straight down or the post or the print here or my post it by, because when we started using computers there was no internet. When internet came, we called it a Ẹ̀rọ ayélujára, web. Olùjára wọn. Ó dàbí abetí ló kára bí ajere. So Yoruba people have an ajere in our own frame of reference, and we could compare the internet to, or the World Wide Web to ajere. So ẹ̀rọ yẹn ayélujára, olùjára wọn. The point I'm trying to make is that even when the words did not exist, we created it, and that's what you find in many advanced cultures. Either you borrow to add, or you borrow when you have none, or you create from using your own language. And like I said, English also does the same thing. As a matter of fact, I don't think there's any language in this world. I'm going to use the word steal in quotes that steals words from other languages like English language. I don't think there's anyone. I think English probably steals more than any other language. Because you go there, you see Latin, you see Greek. Most of your words, psychology, all those words are Greek. Psychology, sociology, this is Greek words. You see German, you see Latin, you see French, you see Arabic, you see Persian, you see Yoruba now, all kinds of things in English language. All of that to say this, that there are people who are losing their own words. And what they did when they came in contact with Oyinbo was to, I don't want to mention any ethnicity because I don't want it to look like I'm insulting, but it was actually how she taught us. One of the reasons she taught us some words that I still remember today, because those words were going into extinction in our language. And every time I meet people from that particular part of the country, I always do to them what she taught us. I would say, what's this thing in your language? And most of them don't know, because those things don't exist, in their own frame of reference anymore. What I'm saying basically is this: if folks who have lost their words, or they have lost words in their language, in that particular language, and their own language also being threatened by extinction, if they are telling you to stop speaking Yoruba language, it is called Dabimotida. It's not based on unity. It's based on trauma bonding. In other words, I'm losing something, you lose your own something, let us work together. No, I don't want to work together that way. I'm going to keep what I have. If you like, lose what you have. Maybe that's what your own calling is. I'll keep what I have in my own space. You learn it. right? And this is why I always say that when we want to compare ourselves, let's be comparing ourselves with people that matter. Okay, I love reading about English history and all those folks, Europe, China, German. It helps you to understand that. Okay, I know, Kere no aye, as Yoruba people, I know Kere. All right, that was not part of today's class. I don't know if we're going to read anything today, but we'll see how it goes. Okay, thank you very much for listening to that very long Turenchi. How we're going to put that in the video is in the hands of God, but somehow we will. Before we get to class, if you're on TikTok, please power tap. Let's like the live. We're reading this book. ABQ says most languages have lost plenty of their words, especially in northern Nigeria. Really? Yeah. Northern Nigeria is actually okay. I get what you are saying. Now that I think about it, one of the reasons they lost their words, and some of them, their languages are being threatened by extinction, it's actually because of Hausa. And it's not like Hausa forced themselves, so it became the lingua franca, so people just speak that language. So naturally, what this copy say, we also borrowed from Arabic. Yes, I mentioned that earlier. I mentioned alubosa. So in Yoruba language, Wednesday is Ojoru, but because of our relationship with Islam and Arabic words, we also call it Alaruba. Thursday is Ojobo. We also call it Alamisi. Friday is Eti, Ojo Eti. We also call it Jimo. And the Jimo is from the fact that Oman Kojokol, or the Jama, or Jumat, the Jumat service, or I want Jama. Okay, no Jimo. Me, I shall like our people, shall. I really am proud to be Yoruba. Someone says, works like Alubasa. Yes. And one of the things you also notice about life is this: if you borrow words and you can't say you borrowed it, you're also from a very retarded culture. I don't know, some people in this country, they cannot acknowledge the fact that some things they did not have. What you have, they say is their own. Adura, yes, Adura is Iparoje Adura. It's the same thing. Adwa is also Adura. But Yoruba, another word for it is Iwuri. And Fani, thank you, Lola. Oh, good. It's been a while, thank you. But that's a very good. Every evolved civilization would acknowledge where they got things from. They don't go around saying, we came from heaven with all these words. They learned nothing from anybody. Anybody that talks like that is from a very, very inferior culture. If you talk like that, that's your business. If you are angry, that's also your business. May God have mercy on your soul. Grow up. The world has moved on from... The world has gone past times of fighting. So drop your guns and your swords, and let us live all as one. Who knows that song? We all need love and understanding. So drop your guns and your swords, and let us live all as one. Yeah. I'll be waiting. Yes, that's Asha. Okay, let us read book now. We have tried with our news gone. To be fair, I think the rainfall actually got me a bit distracted. Thank you, everybody celebrating Asha in the comment section. That's one of the finest singers, one of the most brilliant singers in the world. Yes, I said it. In the world. Yes. Asha, Bukola. Is it Lemide? Brilliant. Like you could listen to 360 that just sang, or Fire on the Mountain, or Jailer, or anyone, and just feels new. She's good. Very good. And she's doing well. Speaking the same Yoruba language, by the way, just to be clear. She speaks English too. Agbóyìnbó náà. Agbóyìnbó. Waidi, God bless you, Lola. I told you, we will like vowels for some interesting reasons. I, A, E, I, O, U. If you just say so, just help you add some vowels. Anything you say in Yoruba land, they'll add vowels. Just to give it more. Waid will be Waidi. Rauf will be Raufu. Why would you end the word with consonants in Yoruba language? There are words that end with consonants, but one wow, but one. Even towns. Have you noticed? Our words, especially nouns, rarely end with consonants. Yes, Akimu. Imagine someone from Saudi Arabia is around. I just shout Hakim. We don't know that it's the same Hakim. Yoruba. Every people, wherever you. Sorry, I just got a message. Someone says, Asha, great artists, they play our music in many supermarkets in the USA. Yeah. We're proud of her. We'll be proud of you too. Everybody here will be proud of you too. Whether, no matter how big or small where your work is, your work will matter. Omolomo says, my children are coming to Yoruba land in summer. Excuse me. It says, my children are coming to Yoruba land in the summer. I've been instilling Yoruba into them since day zero. Well done. Well done. Well done. All right. I can't like the gist more than this book where I want to read. As I want to read now, I just be like, say, one go class. But you know, like the gist. Alamu Koroi. What word is that? I don't know that one now. Alamo Koroi. No, I don't think that one is. No, that's not foreign. That's local. Seria, we borrowed that one. We borrowed that one from Sharia. What does Seria for? That's from Sharia. Alumokoroi, I think it's Yoruba. I think it's indigenous. I don't think that one is borrowed. Alumokoroi. Mi ò tí ro rí but someone says, Baba, share you they read old books as well. This book is old too now. It's our Lord's book. It's also old. We're going to read it now. Don't worry, don't mind me. I'm trying to gather my thoughts because of the old, up and down we had. Yeah, so Seria, we got Seria from. There's a book. One day I'm going to read it here. I read it here before actually. It's called Oduimole. It's from Journal of History 1977. There's a paper that was written on Oduimole, and you'd be shocked at the way people use words. Odun. Afa, yes, Afa is from Afa. I don't know where we got it from. I don't know if it was Arabic. Maybe it is Alufa. I'm not sure. But it's possible. Bossy. No, I think that one is Awala Niyao. Alebu. It's not everything. I don't know that one. No. Fari. I don't know. Aspirin, of course. Aspirin is. All right. I think we've done a lot. We've done enough on the news. Let's go to class. Even if it's just 9 minutes to 8. Let's wait for 45 minutes. Someone says Alebu is Arabic. Really? That's nice. See? I think the point is just that we also have to remember that those words should be addition, especially if we have such words in our own language. Ashiri, yes. Aniyan, yes. Wakati, yes. Dunya, yes. Dunya is not even so Arabic as it is Sanskrit. I think it's actually from India. It's Hindu. But they also borrowed it in. So Arabic also borrowed words from Persia, from India. Like I mentioned, cash was introduced by the Arabic, but the Arabic borrowed it from Persia. Orange, lemon, lime, they also borrowed it. Sugar, they also borrowed sugar from Persia. A lot of words, I can't remember everything. I think Q as well. A lot of words, they also borrowed. Some of the words that you call Arabic today were also Persian origin, not Farsi, the old Persian. Not borrow. I think the important thing is just to make sure that, let's say the word, if you have a local, what's the word? Like a synonym, don't lose that one. Right? Don't lose it. But the truth of the matter is this: Adura today is a Yoruba word, just as lemon is an English word. Do you get the point? So Adura is not, we can say etymologically, it's from here, it means this, and the origin is here, but now is a Yoruba word. You get what I'm saying? The same way you can say orange is English, but in reality, you have to go all the way to Arabic and then to Persia. You can't say psychology because it's logos is logic. That's Greek. Okay, so if you break the words down, it's Greek at the end of the day, but it's English language today. So the point is that Adura, we also have to be very careful when people say things like, "Oh, that word is not our word, we should throw it away. Let's go for the original one." There's nothing like that. The original one that you're talking about could have been coined by some people. That's why you can break some words down. Okay. The important thing is not that you should throw it away, though. Own the one that's older and add a new one to it. Then your language becomes richer. Basically that's how language is great. That's why we have synonyms and stuff. I ever thought about it. How do you have names for flowers in English language? Think about it. Different flowers have different names. Some of those names are not even English, because some of those things were also not native in some cases to the land, introduced and all of those things. All right, let's go to class. I was like, no matter what I do before 8 o'clock, we've got to get into this. So we'll do this for another 40 minutes or so, and then we'll have a beautiful weekend. All right. Awo on trial. The defense strikes back. Awo on trial. The defense. Somebody said, let's not read today. Let's just gist. Okay, let me ask you. Should we gist or should we read? Anything, write in the comment section. Koboko says, how did we get name for tiger in Yoruba? We didn't. There's no word for tiger in Yoruba land. We don't, because we don't have tiger in Yoruba land. Ẹkáàbọ. Everyone in the comment section, Ẹkáàbọ. Jesus is Lord. Everybody saying gist. You don't want to read. If I start reading now, I will never be reading too. Is that what we gist? Okay, let's just for some minutes before I go. And I want to see, I've marked this book like we read today. I will now ask, you are the one, no. Let's just talk briefly about Persian and Iran and US. I want to take me into another. Okay, I think we have. In fact, there's no single read inside this place. Okay, one, two, just read just came now. Everybody has been saying we have more gist. Okay, let's just for like another 5 minutes. If there's tiger, there's no tiger in Yoruba. Someone says tiger is Ekun. Tiger is not Ekun. Tiger is not ekun. Leopard is ekun. Kiniun is lion. Ekun is leopard. Amotekun is cheetah. We don't have tiger in Yoruba land, so we don't have a word for it. Somebody says tiger. Yes, we can call it that. We can call it the way we will say bilikisu. So we say tiger. But we don't have tiger in our wild. It's not indigenous to our space. So we've answered that question. Anymore. What's lion? Kiniun. Kiniun. Lion is kiniun. Leopard is ekun. Cheetah is amotekun. Panther is anybody in the comment section. Ekwabila, no. Panther. Jaguar is not a Yoruba word. Thank you, Bamidele. It's Akata. And that's why, sometimes you have conversations with black Americans. And they say, you guys used to call us Akata, you ate us. You remember this song, Ẹkáàbọ? Sorry, Ojokwe. There's a song. Who knows this song? Oyinbo gbajo mi o, Akata gbajo. Oyinbo gbajo mi o, Akata gbajo. Who sang that song? We are gisting. You said you want to gist. Yeah, we are gisting. Akata, in that sense, they're referring to black. And I've said this is my theory of what happened. There was a time that the Black Panthers was a major movement. Yeah, was it Collington or Barrister? I think it was Collington. Oyinbo gbajo mi o, Akata gbajo. Àbí ṣé Barrister ni? Ìkànnà méjì ṣá. Akata Honjo. So Black Panther was a major movement in the United States, and the funny thing, if you look back, our artists, unlike now, and it's a shame, our artists, especially musicians, were very, very aware of, they were very conscious of world events, and it always featured in their songs. Right? Growing up, there's a song, ènìyàn dúdú ní South Africa, ènìyàn dúdú ní àgbáyé o, gbé wọn níjà, that's Báyọ̀ Adégbóyèga. Gbé wọn níjà, wọ́n ní ìgbàgbọ́ nínú rẹ̀. He was singing about South Africa. They usually find a way to bring in different, whether they travel there or happenings abroad, but we were just dancing now. Anyway, the point is, the Black Panther movement was very big in the 1960s in the United States, right? And Black Power and everything. And Yoruba word for panther is Akata. So naturally, you call him Akata. It's not that the people are animals, it's that they had a movement that was Black Panther. And so Akata. So it's not a derogatory. Some people could maybe use it as a derogatory kini, but that's not the intention. Because when we're growing up, you hear things like Oyinbo gbajo mi o, Akata gbajo, like the white man, dance to my music. Black Americans also dance to my music. That's what. Someone say Akata is not a slur. It's not. It could be. Words are dynamic too. People can use something as they can turn it it's like aboki. Aboki is not an insult, but it's also an insult. Aboki means friend, but aboki could also mean something else, if you get what I'm saying. So it's possible that some people use Akata as slur, and I think some people actually do, but in reality it's not what it is. And so here's what happens. The Hausa person who knows that you're on the same page, if you call him aboki, he doesn't mind. There are people that call aboki, say abokina, but there's a way you say aboki, I bet you like Bumini. But generally speaking, Akata, growing up, Akata was, when I knew that Akata was a slur, it's not even up to 10 years. I didn't know it was a slur. I didn't live amongst them, so maybe that's why. But I never, because we grew up hearing it and we knew what it meant. We knew it meant for us, it's just like a people, not like a boo. But people can also be funny with things. So it's possible that some people have used it and turned it into something else. That's possible. That one is definitely a slur. What you just wrote there is definitely a slur. I don't want to even read it out. But it's a slur. Ades. Ajereke is a slur. I won't tell you the people he's talking about, Sha. I said 5 minutes. I think we're good now. So now that we've just said enough, let's go back to the book. Are we good? Or is there any other thing? Or you want to come up? I heard about Niger who jackpot by marrying US citizens for papers. You heard. You're not hearing. It's not in the past now. It's a present reality. I work with Rakata. Kí akátá pẹ́ díẹ̀ kí ó tún pa ẹlẹ́dìyẹ èèwọ̀ ní èèwọ̀ òrìṣà. See people just writing lyrics for us in this place. Thank you. Ireke is not a slur, yes. Ajereke is yes. Is tiger Ogidon? No. Lion is Ogidon. Male lion is Ogidon. We don't have any word for tiger in Yoruba because we don't have tigers around. So Ogidon is what you call Kinu is Kinu. So again, it's synonyms. So Kinu is Kinu, but Ogidon is what you call male lion. And I know this because of something my dad used to say back in the day. Someone says, is it not Kinu? And like I said, it's synonyms. So you could have two words for the same thing. So it's Kinu. All lions are Kinu. Male lions are Kinu and also Ogidon. Also, Yoruba is top notch. Yes, it is. Let me look for YouTube people. I want to include them in this our gist. Yomai says gist gallop preferably. Then he says Ekwanbila can be used to connote tiger. I mean, we can create words for it. It's not impossible. Because it has lines on its body, so Ekwanbila. It's possible. I mean, we can call it that. But I think, growing up, some of the time we just hear Ekwan means tiger, Kinu means lion, But if you see Ekwanbila, it's tiger. It's also good. Woodpecker. Abi? Kini woodpecker in Yoruba? I think it's a woko. It's not a wolo. Okay, that must be a typo. It's a woko. We have things, so we have words, and our fathers were smart, our mothers were smart. They also had words for, we have words for things. We know that birds have different names. Otoni baka, otola awoko, otolo wiwi, and owl is owiwi. So we have, I think this guy also, I don't know if he does it. I know he talks about animals, but I don't know if he mentions animals in Yoruba. That's original. I don't know if he calls them by Yoruba name. What's Edu? Edu is monkey now. It's a species of monkey. Odere is a species of bird. Asha is hawk. Asha is hawk. Eagle is is Idi. Idi. Mufasa, are you Mufasa from Clubhouse? It says they call, I won't read what you said, because I don't know much about it. What does Edun Jobi mean? I know Edun is a species of monkey. Oh, Mufasa, good to see you. Edun is a species of monkey, but there's something that I'm going to have to check. I know what I'm about to say, but I'm going to have to check. I don't want to mumble. Good to see you, Mufasa. Àwọn alágbára ẹ̀yin alágbára ayé tó yẹ kẹ́ jẹ́ kí ìjà yé parí níṣẹ́ lẹ́ ń dákun. Ìwọ tó gbọ́ ọmọ Ísírẹ́lì sílẹ̀ lóko ẹrú. I was going to call you alágbára ayé o, máa fi kọrin. Gbé wọ́n níjà, gbé wọ́n níjà. Ta ló mọrin yẹn? You're laughing. I want to say something. I just want to confirm so that I don't want to mislead. Sometimes you know something, but even you like it is too sweet to be true. But sometimes it's actually true. But you just want to make sure. Thank you, Omo Lomo. You recall it? I want to buy a Degbe guy. That's the man. Yes. Okay. I'm correct. It's good. So here's the thing. And I think I won't go deep into it because it's going to get us into Ifa. But a particular species of monkey, Edun, that's colobus monkey, they are like I want to use this word loosely, spirit animals. Right? So the belief is that the spirit of trees is protected by Edun. So Edun Jobi would be Edun Jobiwa, almost like we are connected to the colobus monkey, essentially. Not that they are monkeys, though. It's like the spirit connected. There's something else that I'm trying to remember. There's a particular point I'm trying to remember, and it has to do with, to be honest, the reason I don't want to go into it is that it has to do with what twins used to experience before. And it's true, twins and having Oshabeji and those things, it was not always like that in Yoruba land. There was a time when we also used to have sacrifices. Now, people say on social media, it's not possible. There was a time like that. There was a reason, for instance, why the mother of the woman who became Osemawe, that's Pupupu of Ondo, and Ebumawe of Agwewe, they are twins. Ebumawe was a man, Pupupu was a woman. There's a reason they took them out of Ife. Okay? But we're not going to go into that today. Anyway, the point is that we evolved as a people. Okay, so there was a time, and let me say this so it can land well with Yoruba people here. I don't know of any ancient culture that did not have human sacrifice. Let me just put it out first so that if you say we had it too. Okay, and it doesn't reduce our greatness in any way. You see it among the Mayans, the Incas, in Egypt, in China, in England, in Sweden, in Norway. Human sacrifice was just normal. Okay, and even sacrifice of twins in many cultures. So we also experience that. But there's a particular time in an evolutionary journey when a family consulted Ifa and they were able to. No, there was nothing like that in Israel, Erobodo. There was no twin kill in Israel. Let's not. This is not about. It's not religion. Where was it in Israel? There was twin kill. There was human sacrifice in Canaan, not in Israel. And there was no human sacrifice in Israel. I don't think you know what you're talking about. There was human sacrifice in Canaan. There was also human sacrifice in Israel. Anyway, where was I? Human sacrifice, right? Is the reality of much of just about every ancient civilization. But there was a time in our own evolution that it was stopped. You just joined when I was talking about human sacrifice. I know, and you probably assumed that I was going from a religious perspective, and so you mentioned Israel because you know that I'm a Christian. I know where you're coming from. And that's the funny thing. Israel is not even synonymous with Christianity. It's quite interesting, isn't it? Anyway, let's move on. The point I'm trying to make is that in our evolution, and this is what I usually tell you about people. By the way, it can get very dark. Talking about human sacrifice can get very dark. But you have to have the mind of a scholar. So you know that you are studying. It's not like you're looking for a way to sling mud and all of those things. Anyway, the point is, what I usually tell you about people is, your flex is not that you didn't do it. Your flex is that you evolved out of it. And in many cases, not all, but in many cases before colonization, you evolved out of many of those things. That's the flex. There are people that they have to be teaching them to do stuff later. Some people they have to be Meriseso had nothing on Yoruba people. We evolved out of that thing long before she came around. By the way, they used to do the same thing to in some cases to girls in ancient Greece. The families also to Abarakwa, if was disabled, they'll throw them away. This is ancient Greece, the same place you got Greek philosophy. So you find this in different cultures. All of that to say that at a point in our evolution, one of the, give me a second. I didn't want to go into that part, but I don't start to. Give me a second. There's a book I'm looking for. If I find it, I'll just read it. If not, Robodo, it's okay. It's fine. No wala. No problem at all. All right, so let me just read some things to you from this. Well, I found what I'm looking for. I just want to make sure that someone says, Prof, Israel was an ethnicity. The land was known as Canaan. That's what I said now. At the time it existed. I mean, when I say, by the way, there's no place that didn't kill human beings, so I'm saying human sacrifice. It's different from murder or homicide or whatever sides. But at the time that human sacrifice was going on in that land, the occupants of the land were Canaanites. One of the things that thank you, Mr. Dungus. One of the things that the God of Israel actually prohibited them from doing was human sacrifice. So that's why it's not something that is included in their culture, right? But that land itself, they don't keep plenty of people there. Okay, I found. So if you read this book, for some reason, I don't want to read books today, but I'm going to. Okay, let me put it this way. I'm going to have a session. I'm going to discuss these things. Okay, there's a book called The Yoruba Cult of Twins. It's by T.J.H. Chappell. Okay, there's another one. That one is actually here, but that is big. It's called The Yoruba of Southwestern Nigeria by William Bascom. It tells us how we evolved, But the point I'm trying to make essentially is that Ifa came in at the point and changed the idea about twins, that they are, blessings from God, they are sent from Olodumare, they are divine emissaries, that they're going to bring fertility and prosperity, and that parents should offer sacrifices and have irebeji and things like that. And then the connection with Edun, that with the monkeys, those things now came much later, and that's why we now hold them in high esteem in the culture. It wasn't always like that. That's what I'm trying to say. It wasn't always like that. But the flex, like I said, is that evolution happened way before colonization. Okay, we also evolved. In some cases, we evolved because times changed. In some cases, we evolved because we came in contact with other people. In some cases, we evolved because, for several reasons. Maybe it could just be the whims and caprices of certain people in town. All right. There are examples for everything I'm saying, by the way. There are many things that changed. And by the way, let me also say that some of the things that we hold there and we say tradition. 1 second, please. Hold on, please. All right. Oh boy, this is something about gist now. We'll now be looking for Oriati Yoru. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that there are different things that lead to evolution, and there's some of the things that we call tradition or tradition. For instance, there are things that we say our fathers did today that our fathers didn't always do. There are things that our fathers did in response to what was happening in their time, which is why I'm always very careful with. Let's go back to the past, because I always ask that question: how far back are you willing to go? I loved history, but I also know that history is not this. When people say things like, let's just go back, a lot of the times people have nostalgia for a past that never existed. There's this thing that makes us think that the past was perfect, that we'll just go back the way our father used to do it. When you get to how your fathers used to do it, you discover that their own fathers used to do it another way. You respond to changes, but the point is that you hold something from the past, and then you add new things, and then you make it better, and then you add new things, and you make it better, but you don't leave the core of who you are as a person. So that's Shaya West says, Prof, what's your opinion about the paved ground that was discovered in Lorry? I find it funny that people actually, okay, let me not say it that way, because we are different. Let me tell you a story. One day, I'll tell you that story, just give me a second. I want to see what's happening with these guys. All right, let me tell you the story. One day, my dad and I were walking. He had come to visit me in Ife. So we went home. All right, so we went home, and then we're going out. And then I noticed a particular part of the road. This was many years ago. I noticed a particular part of the road, and it was paved, not with asphalt or tarred. It wasn't tarred the way we do it in modern days, but it was paved. I saw it was stones. So I called his attention to it, and he told me something. He said that a lot of compounds have that. So apparently, when we were walking through that road was somebody's Agbala. Now, that idea spread to different parts, so that there's a woman. We had only one female Oni. Her name is Luo Bagida. If Luo wanted to, or Niluo, if she wanted to travel from a place to another place, she will commission road construction. The entire palace and courtyards of very wealthy people had pavements. I mean, the spaces, the floor was paved, and the reason primarily is because when you're walking in a place where Ojomatiro, Abatamawa, you're able to walk on paved roads. So I thought that a lot of people knew that stuff. So when the lorry thing, I mean, when people took the picture on Twitter and talking about it, I was like, it's interesting. I mean, I thought people knew that that was a thing. So what really happened is that everyone who, again, think about it. If you were to go from point A to point B, you commission the place to be paved. What did they use? They use akpadi. Akpadi is broken pots, right? Our clay, pots were made of clay, so when it's broken, you have akpadi. Then you have stones as well. They cut it to size and then they lay those things, and then they just keep laying until you have a paved road, so to speak. So when if she has to walk, she's not walking in area. Is that not what they accuse us of? I just spoke Yoruba. Anyway, that means mud. Okay, she's able to walk on paved roads. So it's a reality in Ife. A lot of folks would go to Ife and see what was there and replicate it in their own spaces, in our towns. So what it was that a lot of things that was popular in Ife was the place. So people would see something new, replicate it back at home. And so we had that. There's a book. 1 second. Roy. One shelf. Kelechi says Yoruba is your language, so why won't you speak it? My brother, thank you for also understanding, Jerry. One guy say we today speak Yoruba for Yoruba land. I can't the one that say now waiting we can't speak now. Shotiri. Guys, I want to show you something. Let me get the book myself. Mombo, just a second. All right. So I hope it's in this book. If not, then it will be in another one. But I think it's in this one. So paved road was a reality in Yoruba land, and no, it's another book. I can't believe my eyes. I don't know. Kí la máa yọnu kí n láti ṣe podcast báyìí. Pẹ̀lú gbogbo gist and gist, just go from one topic to another. No, it's not in this book. This book is called The Yoruba, A New History by Archeology. It's a fantastic book, but it's not the one I'm looking for. Remember, I think it's somewhere. There's a work he did in Ife. Give me a second. Anyway, what I'm looking for. The point is that, so naturally, if it was the place everybody had to go to and everybody learned from and everybody was connected to, naturally they would just replicate whatever it is they found there back at home. So that's hey, it's here now. No way any. But I can't. My wank I can't say you. How do you find? There's an article. I think I found it. That would be easier because this book I didn't mark that place, so that would be crazy. Give me a second, please. Archeology of early Yoruba. It might be no. When I'm doing this, I'm trying to think. Please pardon me. If I find it will be nice. If I don't find it, I promise you I'm going to look for it some other time. But it helps to appreciate what I'm about to say. So that there's one I'm looking at right now, but it's not the one I'm looking for. Anyway, the point is what you saw in Ilorin is something you see in many ancient Yoruba cities. Let's keep talking. I'll find that stuff later. I promise I'll find it. Now that this is another thing. Once I talk about something, I must find it because that way we'll make sure we finish that one before we go to another thing. And I think I'm close. If I find it here, I'll find it the other place. Anyway, we can get another person to tell us. We're just in Abi. I think it's this one. I can't believe my eyes. Adekunle Airotimi on YouTube says, in my neck of the woods, twins and their mothers were seen as evil and killed until Christian missionaries arrived. Please don't ask me the address of my neck of the woods, Sha. I believe you. Because it's also true in some parts of Yoruba land that some practices did not live until Christian missionaries came. It's true. But it's also true that in some parts of Yoruba land, we evolved out of some things before Christian missionaries came. Someone says, what did they find in Ilorin? Paved road. So you not see it as, that's why I'm looking for the image so I can show you. But I don't want to just show you the Ilorin one because that Ilorin one is good. But I want to show you something a bit more impressive because, of course, it's the work of archaeologists. Not that the Ilorin one is in any way inferior. Close. If you give me some minutes, I'll find it for you. Let's go here. I'm trying to get an academic paper that was written by Professor Akinwumi Ogundiran. I thought I had it, but apparently. But also in this book, then I'll also look for how to get this stuff in this book. Timbatiri Maka from Bukowa. Efumisha Jukan. Give me 1 minute. To Yoruba. Almost there. So the paper actually, for some reason I can't get it out, but the paper is titled Classic Ile-Ife, a consideration of scale in the archaeology of Yoruba, of early Yoruba urbanism, AD 1000 or 1000 to 1400. Classic Ile-Ife, a consideration of scale in the archaeology of early Urbanism. I'll say that again. Classic Ile-Ife, a consideration of scale in the archaeology of early Yoruba urbanism, AD 1000 to 1400. So that's between the 11th and 15th century. But in Tabari, Kinekon, Tabari Guama for Bele, but Atirio. Ọlọ́run tó lágbára. Motiri. Walai Motiri. Bakato kaya, yekakoka, kokofun bibi. I found it. You see, God is good. I actually found 2 for 1. So let's take the first one, but let me open the other one. Sile. Please don't ask me what that means in English language. We open it down. Someone says, but if Ilorin was founded in the 17th century, how could a payment be dated? No. You are mixing 2 things. I'm not talking about Ilorin, I'm talking about Ife. The urbanism, the classic Ile. I literally said classic Ile Ife. A consideration of scale in the archaeology of early Yoruba urbanism. And this was published in the Journal of Urban Archaeology. I'm not saying that Ilorin was in 1008 Joe. I'll show you the image. I'm going to read something from Igbo Lokun. I think you're going to like this. No, but let me find a way to. It's stressful. I want you to see the picture. So it's a bit. It's a whole compound. So think of a courtyard. Instead of defining concrete on the floor, you have porch sheds. So when you walk through this place in 2026, you might just have a very tiny part of it. So it's a full courtyard, but over time. So it's when archaeologists work that they're able to actually, clean this place up. And if you look at, let me try and make this a bit closer. If you look at this one, you see porch sheds, you see stones, and they put a pen here just to be able to appreciate the length of each stone. So that's something similar to what they found in Ilorin. You find it in many ancient towns, not because they are the same age as Ife, but Yemi says you've changed your streaming schedule. No, we always do 4 p.m. every day, 4 p.m. So now that we are here, I'm going to read some things to you. Apparently, what I was looking for in this book is there, but the image I was looking for is not in this book. It's the one I just showed you. I'm going to read something from the paper. A characteristic feature of the Ife, in fact, okay, Mumbo. Excuse me. Okay, let's just go back a bit, just so I can appreciate something very important. Measuring about 7 kilometers in circumference with a maximum diameter of about 2.3 kilometers, the inner wall. So we're talking about the inner wall of Ife. So Ife had, Odudu had built he had built a wall. Army also built walls, but Odudu had built a wall, an inner wall, and the circumference of that wall was 7 kilometers. With a maximum diameter of 2.3 kilometers round inside inner Ife. So just keep reading. We'll get to where we're going, but I want to read this one, just a bit of it. Measuring about 7 kilometers in circumference with a maximum diameter of about 2.3 kilometers, the inner wall was an embankment built of rammed lateritic soil. At the center was the palace complex, located on one of the highest elevations available in the area. Archaeological excavations in a section of the palace complex, La Fogido site, exposed a royal burial dated to the 12th century AD. Terracotta figures of animals that bear the iconography of Ife royalty are represented in the site's mortuary sculptures. All the animals were modeled as leads for the 14 funerary pots excavated in the site. I'm going to move very quickly to where we're going. Terracotta heads and so on and so forth. A characteristic feature of the Ife urban space is that several of its major thoroughfares were paved with ceramic tiles, often laid on their edges in herringbone patterns and sometimes mixed with quartz and quartzite cobbles. Ogunfolako in 1994 estimated that an area of 12 kilometers square of the city was covered with pot-shed pavements between the 12th and 15th centuries. But recent and ongoing work by the Ife Sungbo Archaeological Research Team shows that these architectural features covered a far larger area of the city. It appears that most of the city's major thoroughfares, most of the city's major thoroughfares were paved with pot-shed tiles to ease mobility on the clayey soils of the city, especially during the rainy season. These public projects required enormous labor, a point alluded to in the oral traditions, according to Akinjogbi. The floors of elite houses, that's what I was talking about, courtyards. The floors of elite houses and religious sites were also paved with ceramic and stone tiles, as evident at Ita Yemo, Lafogido, Odogbe, Obalara, Oyashiri family land, and Orobado. Exactly the Orobado you're thinking about. I did a session about it years ago, so if you remember, it's that one. That's the site of the kings of Benin who pass on. There's a site for them in Ife. It's still there, by the way, but that place is also paved. The spatial extent and rich concentrations of archaeological finds within and on the outskirts of the two perimeter walls indicate that the urban space of Ile-Ife was a densely nucleated settlement. Barrows Kusimba and Agbaje Williams estimated that about 70,000 to 105,000 people might have lived in the city at its peak during the 14th century. All right, so what is he saying? I'll just quickly explain on the terrain sheet that I spoke. Is that the roads were paved, so the thoroughfares. So if I had, and I'm going to Ife for a reason. The reason is because what you saw in Ilorin is what you might find in many places, but Ilorin is important, very important. But the point is, you only saw like Buya into Sheku. Right, I'm sure if they dig, they'll probably find something more. But moving around in Ife as well, I saw things like that. Then it got me to research, and I discovered that it was something you find in two major spaces. Number one, the roads, because of course, Ojo Manro. If you're going out, we had, for instance, if I had three toll gates in the 11th century, in the 1000s. There were 3 toll gates. If you are traveling, right, or you're coming into town, or you're selling, or you're moving around, you want to make sure that abata, that's the clay, does not stain your clothes or your wares and stuff like that. So it makes sense. And by the way, this was actually done by PWD. It was a public works project. It wasn't like an individual thing. It was a lot of people had to do it. So and it was commissioned by the state. I'm using modern words intentionally, commissioned by the king. So they will pave the roads such that every major road, thoroughfare, according to this, every major road that leads into the city and different parts of the city was paved. What this idea of pavement basically is that it was like you've tarred those roads, but instead of using asphalt and whatever we have or concrete, you use pot sheds or broken. I'm using broken plugs because it's easier for us to know akpadi, but it's pot shed, akpadi. So you have it on the roads. You also have it in compounds of very wealthy people, right? And the way we build our houses are usually like this. Okay, so there's a courtyard, there's a place where everybody is gathered. There's a cement. So the way to ensure that place also is a place where you can walk when it's raining and you don't have to get your clothes dirty. You also pave those places. And like I said, to do the roads, you needed a lot of people. So it's not like one thing that a person just woke up and said, I want to pave roads. I want to put up pavement. So the same way, you have to be very rich to be able to commission that kind of thing within your compound. If you go to the palace in Ife, there are places that you still have those pavements. All right. There's this one, Itayemo. I'll just quickly read something to you from here. This was a work that was done by Willett in 1973. Frank Willett. He also did some work at Orobado. I think we should be talking about some of these things more, but we've been doing a lot of Nigerian politics. It is well. The chronometric dates from the archaeological deposits at Itayemo indicate that the outer wall was built sometime during the 12th and 13th centuries, with a circumference of about 15 kilometers and a maximum diameter of approximately 5.2 kilometers. Think about it. These people were building walls of 15 kilometers in circumference, not with cement or brick or stuff. That's a job. The outer wall doubled the size of its predecessor. The areas between the inner and the outer wall, that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the statement on, let's just leave the wall. When we want to have that conversation, we will get into it. I want to just talk about the floor. Just the floor for today, okay? We'll come back to the other things later. I'll go to this book, The Yoruba, A New History, by the same Professor Akiomi Ogundiran. Give me a second, please. I'll read something to you about Luo Bagida later, but let me just start this. Okay, I read about the herringbone patterns. Why not just read everything? Sure, we're just gisting. Let's read. Ball. Okay, where was I? Sorry. Okay, let me read from here. There's evidence that the floors of elite houses and religious sites at Ife were paved with potsherds and cobblestones, as is evident at Itayemo, Lafogito, Odogbe, Obalara, Oyashiri, and Orobado, as well as in the areas around the Oduduwa Grove. Most of the potsherd tiles were arranged linearly in herringbone patterns, and black and red shirts were arranged in geometric mosaics. In some instances, such as in the area of Oduduwa Grove, the potsherd pavement was laid in concentric patterns and bordered by cobblestones. Likewise, the walls and columns of religious and elite buildings were decorated with ceramic discs. The ceramic tile and cobblestone pavements provided an aesthetically pleasing landscape and also made the movement of people easier, especially during the rainy season when the heavy clay soils of Ife were slippery and hazardous for travelers. The paved thoroughfares tremendously improved the urban landscape. Excuse me. The paved thoroughfares tremendously improved the urban landscape of Ile-Ife, but some of the city-wide potsherd pavements were likely products of public works that required massive extraction of labor from citizens and other residents, including conscription and obligatory service. The occurrence of potsherd pavements in virtually every part of the area within the inner and outer walls and beyond indicate that the city was densely populated. One estimate put the population in the range of 70,000 to 105,000 during the mid-14th century. Think about it for a second. That in the 1300s, you had about between 70 and 105,000 people living in a place. Think about that kind of city. That's what we always say it, and it's true. We're a city people. You know, when you hear City People magazine, it's talking about Yoruba people. We're city people. We are the most urbanized on the continent. This is not even about when the time comes, I will say it to you, those things. Do you know what this to have 70,000 people in a place? In one town with one head, 70,000. That's mega. Come to us 105 in the 1300s. How many cities did Europe have in the 18th century that have up to 70,000 people? We want to have that conversation. I promise I'm going to give you comparisons. That's why I say, if you want to compare yourself with those ones. Let's go on. In classical Ife, the social, political, and economic lives anchored on a new spatial model of settlement. Let's not go deep into that one. It's another topic. I just want to speak on. I just want to read to you stuff. I want to read about Luo Bagida. I mentioned that earlier, so I might as well just read to you something about her from this book. Again, the book is called The Yoruba, A New History by Akinwumi Ogundiran. It says there's an ongoing program of archaeological excavations that focuses. Give me a second. Ombo, I think there's something I'm missing. By the way, I'm doing like this because I did not prepare for this apparently. Someone just asked a question, but let's talk about it. Brilliant. Okay. There is an ongoing program of archaeological excavations that focuses on the outer wall, especially in the Itayemo and Okeaton areas of Ile-Ife. And this may shed more light on the long-term chronology of embankment construction in Ile-Ife. Then I will go straight to oral traditions credit Luo Gbagida, listed on the Ife regnal list as a female king, with the draining of many ravines in Ile-Ife and with the paving of the major thoroughfares of the city with pot sheds. She has been judged harshly in the oral traditions for the human tolls that resulted from the exacting forced labor involved in the building project. I'm reading this particularly because two things. Number one, I mentioned her name. Number two, I saw what Fola wrote there and I wanted to respond by reading. One of the reasons people didn't like her was because of the laborious work they were subjected to in paving those roads. It had nothing to do with gender. It was because they were conscripted. They must do it. If she was going anywhere, the place had to be paved because she doesn't want to step on any armor or any clay. Doesn't want any abata to touch her body. So you have to pave those roads. So let me just read some things to you from here. She has been judged harshly in the labor involved in the building project. One tradition claimed that many laborers died in the ravines in the course of carrying out the public project. You see that in Akin Jogmi. Then he goes on and says, this contemporary memory may have been a post-classical fabrication that is far from the experience of the classical period. To start, the construction of the pavement, like most other aspects of classical era material life, was unlikely restricted to the reign of one king. Rather, the building project most likely took place throughout the classical period, lasting at least 300 years. And maybe our own period was very, very intense. Second, the position of Luo on the king list put her in the post-17th century period, when the construction of these pavements had already ended. So the popular association of Luo with poured shed pavements in Ife traditions has no historical credibility. As I will show in chapter 4, Luo is a stock character in Ife oral traditions for whatever post-16th century historians consider to be an embodiment of bad leadership. Let me not go into it. Anyway, what he's saying is that, and I think there's something to what he's saying. He's saying his own argument is the fact that the roads were paved before Luo got there. But in Ife tradition, Luo also paved some roads, and she's not hated, she's criticized. She's not hated. They just didn't really like her that much because it was exacting and it was a lot of work that people did. That doesn't mean that she was not that strange to say that. Roads were paved and compounds of elites were also paved. So in many parts of Europe, what you would notice is a compound of the elite that were paved. Like I mentioned, the one I saw in my own, part of town must have been part of somebody's compound, right, centuries ago. But now it's just part of the road. I'm sure by now it might have erosion might walk. But what they found in Ilorin is actually a very good thing that people have discovered it. But it's a sign of civilization, right? And yes, Ilorin is a lot younger, like Fola was saying in the comment section. Is that why Kubo? And yes, Fola is right. Luo was the mother of the founder of the Iwo Kingdom. Yes. Telu was the son of Luo, and then he was the one who founded Iwo Kingdom. All right. But she was very powerful, and she also, according to Ife tradition, she was also involved in the paving of maybe some roads. But that doesn't mean that she was the one that started it, but she's known for that because I think it's because it's a labor-intensive work. Someone said, "Luo children are also in Remo." Oh, that's nice. She's the only female Oni in history. There would have been another one. But if people use Agbari, that one was going to be. Let's not go there today. But there's going to be another one. But if I now use Agbari for my great grandfather, they used Agbari for him. They now chose her son. Incidentally, that son created a new ruling house in Ife, and that ruling house is the one that produced the present Oni, the Giesi family. Giesi's mother was the daughter of Oburu. That's my family. Anyway, let's leave my family issue. That's what I think about Ilorin. I think Ilorin is beautiful. I think Ilorin is, and that portrait they found is a sign that there's a lot of civilization in Ilorin, and that's why we should respect our elders. What happened is that between colonization and slavery and internal bickerings, we lost a lot of time, right? And we lost a lot of time, right? And I think we stalled. So our job really is to, and why I like history and archaeology and things like this is that you are able to rediscover who you are, and then you're able to now build. Rather than number one, think that there's nothing good that's come out of this Nazareth, everything has to be Igbo. And number two, also acting as if there's nothing to build on. Your fathers were not dumbos just sitting down eating guava and eating bananas. These were city builders. Think of what it would take you to administer a city of 105,000 people in the 14th century. That's in the 13th, 700 to 800 years ago. How many people can govern a city of 70,000 people in 2026? So that complexity, it will force you to understand politics. You know statecraft. That's why in Nigeria, when people say things like, Yoruba people are doing this, and I saw some funny things on social media last week, oh, they are this, they are that. They will do their chameleon. They say all kinds of things about Yoruba people. And I look at the people talking. These are folks who were discovered, somewhere hanging around trees. The truth of the matter is that when you live in complex societies, you have to learn statecraft and politicking, right? When you see the structure, the organogram and the hierarchies, you have to understand hierarchies will be there. There will be structure, there will be organogram, there will be different sections of society and different stratum, essentially. So what you have is you will learn how life moves, how complex things get, and you know when to be calm and when to push and when to stoop in order to conquer. Not everything is giddy giddy. My father says, will the title come back to your ruling house again? Of course. So I'm talking about my family. I missed that time, sha. But since I started it, the immediate past Oni Kwande Shijade is from Ogboro Lubushe. You know the way these ruling houses are. So in Ife, there are 4 main houses. In each ruling house, there are many family compounds. In each family compounds, there are many extended families. That's the truth too. So there are 4 ruling houses in Ife. In each ruling house, there are compounds. In each compound, there are extended family. The compound is not the extended family. The compound has extended families. Within those extended families, you now have many nuclear families. Someone says emphasis on S. Yes, Empress. Pass through no, that's wrong. That's not why. And the Oni did not pass through maternal line. Nishijuade is actually from Ogboro. It's not maternal. It's not let's not even go there. It's just hubris. But like I always say, because it's important to say that towards the end, you also try to correct some of the errors. At least with Ojaja, Oba Ogunwosi, they I like the way they ended it, which is why I'm always very angry when I think about what's happening these days from Oyo, because regardless of what happened between Alafin Adeyemi and Onyolubushi, somehow towards the end, everything, but Olubushi it's not even a maternal line. Olubushi is a BTK. Baba is. And by the way, who doesn't have a mother? Not. And that practice no longer really happens anyway. It's just like, number one, it's not even the same thing. But the idea of maternal, to be clear, which is not what happened to Onyolubushi, is not what happened. But what you are saying, the idea of maternal is what you have with someone like King Charles. The mother was Queen Regnant. So he is now king. But in this case, the mother was not a princess. And in Ife, a lot of people that say that children of Oduduwa, some of them, not all, some of them were grandchildren through his sons, some are grandchildren through his daughters. They are talking about Owu. It's true, the daughter. Sorry about that. It's true, his daughter. But you see, the way it is that if Oduduwa's daughter marries you, you're a royal family. You're a royal family. Omolomo says, I have a son who could marry your daughter and become linked to royalty. You have to go and pray that I should have a daughter because I don't have a girl. Don't worry, your son will be your son and my son will be friends. Ondo Kingdom was founded by Queen Kukuku. Queen Kukuku was not Alafin's wife. That's a later revision. Kukuku was not Alafin's wife. Had nothing to do with Alafi. That one came much later. Nothing. Queen Kukuku actually established that place before Alafi. Before Oyo became what it became. I am. What do you think my sons are? You're not going to believe if I decide to tell you. Let me just leave that matter. I'm not in that business. I stopped many years ago. If you see the no, I beg, let's not talk about family. Let's just leave. I'm laughing because I don't want to get into it. Well, I'll look for something. I want to read something to you about that Ondo thing. That Ondo thing is a fabrication. The woman actually, the mother of both, the Pupupu is the one that became the founder of Ondo with the same way. The twin brother is Ebumawe of Agoiwe in Ijebu. Their mother took them out of Ife. Had nothing to do with her laughing. What happened is some people try to change. Let me read something to you from A History of the Yoruba by Professor Baji Akintoye. In fact, I'm going to read to you why they changed the story. Then I will tell you the story. Okay, I've already told you the story, but let me tell you why they changed the story. This is from A History of the Yoruba People. Give me a second. Let me see if I can read you the other story as well. I love Samuel Johnson. I love what he did. Fela says, how come if you're not your story? The reason is actually Samuel Johnson. I respect him, but I've always said it. He's the first person to write A History of Yoruba. It was published in 1921, but he finished writing it in the 1890s. Then his brother published it after he died. The truth is, I think they were trying to recreate the idea of empire. I mean, that's the book where I would see somebody writing about the people that will not ask the people they used to just write something for them. Oh, bad gone. If I find, I'm trying to see if I can find you. I want to read both to you so that Oma Wono Arawon. Perfect. Found it. A History of the Yoruba People by Stephen Baji Akintoye. Ẹkáàbọ. Shawambi. This is the last time I'm going to read it for tonight. Then we're going to meet again next week. Let's get into this. The Ondo subgroup lived in the expansive forest country of the Calais and south of the I'll take that again. The Ondo subgroup lived in the expansive forest country north of the Calais and south of the Ife. Some of the biggest rivers in Yoruba land flowed through this very thickly forested country. In addition, in the eastern part of the Ondo country, the Orosun Hill, including the Indore Rock, rises abruptly, forming the highest peak in Yoruba land at 3,098 feet above sea level. Probably because of these conditions, human settlements seem to have been few and widely dispersed in the Ondo forest, and the Ondo dialect showed marked differences from one population center to another. The dialect of the group settled on the slopes of the Orosun evinced the most obvious differences from the rest, probably because of their considerable isolation. Only 3 kingdoms seem to have been founded in the Ondo forest: Ekpe, Ondo, with its capital city at Odi Ondo, and Idore. Of these, the Ondo kingdom was the most successful from the beginning. I'm going to move away from this Jacob Egareva stuff about Benin and Ondo because some things happen much later. I'm going to move on very quickly. The true picture seems to be that the kingdom was already in existence before it came under strong Benin influence. The core of Ondo's let's just continue from here. I'm trying to jump away from the Jacob Egareva things because to make me stay on Benin history for a bit. I don't want to do that today. I just want to stay with Oyo and Ife for that question. The core of Ondo's rather unique monarchical system, its special place for high-ranking women chiefs, bears much closer harmony with Ondo's own tradition of its origin. Ondo's own tradition of its origin. Ondo's own, again please, Ondo's own tradition of its origin. Fola says, you mean Oyo fabricated district to boost the standing like Benin is doing now with Ekaledera? Yes. Yes. Who do you ask for their own story? Who do you ask for the story of a people? The people. So I have to be fast. According to the, so this is, they're talking about Ondo's own I'm repeating that phrase because it's very important. We're talking about Ondo's own tradition of its origin. This is their own story, not what anybody's saying about them. According to the Ondo palace traditions, a royal wife in Oduduwa's palace in Ife had twins, one female and one male. Since having twins was regarded with horror or fear in those early days among the Yoruba, the woman was driven from the town with her twin babies. Accompanied by her relatives and sympathizers, she headed south into the forest until she came to Ekpe, where there were some settlers in the Ondo forest. There, the twins grew up, and the male twin with her son Airo, and found her way to the place where she too started a kingdom, naming it Ondo. When Pupupu and Airo and their followers came to this place, there were many old settlements there. By employing tact and the power of rituals, Pupupu and Airo won the acceptance of the rulers of these small old settlements, exactly like happened in Ife. Exactly like Oromio eventually did much later in Oyo. Is the same story in different parts of Yoruba land. Pupupu and Airo won the acceptance of the rulers of these small old settlements, and so founded the royal city of Odondo. After Pupupu, Airo ruled the new kingdom, that's her son, and established the line of kings with the title of Osemawe. Now listen to this. A slightly different version of this tradition was recorded by Samuel Johnson, most probably in Oyo, in the late 19th century. According to this version, the woman who had the twins and was driven south into the Ondo forest was a wife of a king of Oyo. There was no Oyo. 1 second. Sorry about that. Where were we? This is what they now said in Oyo. According to this version, the woman who had the twins and was driven south into the Ondo forest was a wife of a king of Oyo, the Alaafin Ajaka. This would mean that the founders of the Ondo royal family were migrants from Oyo and not Ife. It would also put the founding of the Ondo kingdom in a later time than the other version of the tradition does. In other words, according to the Ondo tradition, it was in the days of Oduduwa himself. According to the Oyo tradition, it's in the day of Oduduwa's great-grandson, Ajaka, who was the son of Oromiyan, who happened to be the grandson of Oduduwa. Oyo can't create the story into one. Let me just read to you. This would mean that the founders of the Ondo royal family were migrants from Oyo and not Ife. It would also put the founding of the Ondo kingdom in a later time than the other version of the tradition does. Yoruba traditions in general speak of the Ondo kingdom as one of the oldest Yoruba kingdoms, considerably older than Oyo Ile, and the fact that the Ondo kingdom has one of the longest lists of kings, nearly 50, seems to support this. What the Oyo tradition recorded by Samuel Johnson probably implies is that some close relationship developed between Ondo and Oyo Ile kingdoms at the early stages of the growth of Oyo's commercial and territorial expansion. As will be seen subsequently, the Ondo kingdom became an important center of trade on an early route which developed north-south through Oyo Ile, Ife, Ondo to the larger coast. Some rivalry with Ife, listen to this. Some rivalry with Ife in the trade of the Ondo area might have given rise to Oyo traditions intended to claim a special closeness of Oyo rulers to the rulers of the Ondo kingdom. Let me stop there. I can sorrow, but at this point, I'm a sorrow. And like I always say, I like to read books. What they are doing in the Kaladera is the same thing that they are doing right now. And they are the Ondo people tell you that they are from Ife. And by the way, it's also like the story is also connected with the story of Agoewuye. Because the one no, it's past 9. I have to go. I hope I answered that question, Sha. It was, and I'm also reading the story. I'm sorry. Okay, good. It was something that came up much later from our folks, and I think this is what happens when people want to. And talking about the fair. I can sort law eBay cutting first, so it's not bad, but it may come out the wrong way. What I'll give you an assignment. If you read, I'll explain it. Let me explain this way. There is, it's not an assignment. Let me just say it. There's a connection between Agoewuye in Ogun State. This is why Yoruba history is very interesting, and why Nigerians of other ethnicities, especially folks from the south, they just talk sometimes, just feel like Kilon Shanwele is a state. Ebumowe is in Agoewuye. Agoewuye is in Ogun State. His own sister, Pupupu, who founded the Osemowe Dynasty, Abi Osemowe royal title, is in Ondo, in Ondo State. So in actual fact, it's made up. And the reason we read the reason also is what happens when people become great. It happens in many cases. People want to cut the ties with a bigger group so that they can create a new identity for themselves. I have to switch the audio source for a second, but we have to close like in a bit. Umbo. Can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me? Okay, good. We're going to make this very quick. Some people, once they get to a particular point, they want to now create a new identity for themselves, and what they want to do is to try and cut off from the other one so that they can become, it's like coming of age. Like, I started this whole thing. Don't connect me with the past. Everything begins with me. But you see, history is very interesting. Oman Yole. When Oyo does it, Oman Yole. When Benin does it, Oman Yole. The funny thing about Benin is that even in their own myth, Benin has two myths of origin, and both myths are connected to Ife. Both myths. Whether it's the Obagodo myth or the Oba myth. The Obagodo myth has to do with Oduduwa directly. The Oba myth also has to do with Ife myth. Omolomo says, it's a human thing. Did you see me trying to marry Busui's future daughter off before birth? If she's birthed. Oh boy. There's something I want to use to wrap up this thing before we go. So people try to create a new identity. But you see, it's a funny thing because Yoruba history all link Mauritius. So Tobatare yo. Oh my Yole, because there are other people that are linked to that story, and you can't be changing all their stories now to create something for yourself. Which is why the Ondo story is consistent with the Ife tradition. The original Benin tradition before 1976 is also consistent with the Ife tradition. Maybe we should be having conversations on this traditional story, maybe to help. With Benin, for instance, not every material that was published before 1970 was heavy on Ife. When everything changed in Benin was 76 thereabouts. And in that period, 4 different versions came out of Benin. 4. There was one by Iyare. There was one by Omorodion. There was one by, there were 4. If I find it, I'll show you. We're going to it's something else. It's the same thing. And the funny thing is, you cannot tell them to change their story because everybody knows it. Let me see if I can find you those names. Why did I mention Benin? Because now I'm going to have to read. What was that? Is it the origin? Yes. I think it is. Mumbo. It is. It's from a Journal of the Historical Society of Nigeria, published in 1976. Found it. But to be like say, oh boy. Okay, it must be somewhere here. Timbaderi, Amari Lojo mi Ojori. It's funny to me though that people are so dedicated to changing history, and it doesn't take anything from you, especially when it's something you can't deny. I've mentioned this in so might as well just read it and get done with. The origin of Eureka Dynasty. Found it. The first person was not Omorodion, Omorege. And then Edebiri and Iyare. There's one more. Omorege identifies this prince with a color there. And so Omorege said this, so one. They now come up publish in the newspaper. Ni Luwambe. Uncle Bessie changed the story. Everything started in 1970. If I find you the beginning, I'll read it to you guys. They just began to change the history, and then before you know what's happening, the man has changed from. I don't know where they got that the Ekala nonsense from. By the way, it's nonsense. Not the person, no, the story. Makes sense. Was it an Ekala? Yes. Was it connected to Ife? Absolutely no. Mumbo, I'll find it for you guys. He's good. We sing and shout it, God is good. It says here, from the above, I don't want to read the above, but we're talking. So it talked about the fact that Romeo lived in Benin for a few years and they called the land a land of vexation, which is like, a child was born, trained and educated in the arts and mysteries. That was a waker and so on and so forth. Excuse me. Let me just read from here. From the above, it can be seen that they received traditions as recorded by Talbot and Egareva and also by H.F. Marshall in 1940. Egareva's book was published in 1933 in their own language. Then in 1934, he published in the English language. But they hate the man now. But that's their own business. Anyway, let me to you. From the above, it can be seen that they received traditions as recorded by Talbot and Egareva are in agreement about the identity and antecedents of the first suburb of Benin and the circumstances in which its dynasty was established. This crucial point, incidentally, are the very ones over traditions in 1970. That was the first time we got a new history in Benin. The title is it worked under the title of Edo History in TypeScript by a certain S.B. Omorege. Subsequently, 3 other versions of these new traditions appeared at different times in the Midwestern, now Bendel State Sunday Observer. As is to be expected in these amateurish historical works, no attempt is made to cite the sources of information. So I'll tell you again, no attempt is made to, as is to be expected in these amateurish historical works, no attempt is made to cite the sources of information or the names of informants. Apart from the version by Omorege referred to above, the other 3 new accounts are from Edu Akezua, D.U. Edebiri, and Iyare. So 4 people started in 1970. Omorege, Akezua, Edebiri, and Iyari. And this document was published in 1976. That was when the story changed. So if you go back and read Talbot's work, if you read Gary Evers' A Short History of Benin, if you read Intelligence Report on Benin by H.F. Marshall, there is congruence. Everything changed when some people said that their fathers were from Benin. Sorry, were from Egypt. It's not today's topic. But the point I'm trying to make is that, even like I say, when people reach a particular level, you'll be like, wait, what can I do? Let me say that I gave birth to everybody. Everything began with me. So you try to break free of every tie you have with ancient history so you can essentially start something new, which is ridiculous because nobody just drops from nowhere. Unless we are talking about myth. But if we're discussing history, everybody was born by somebody. Empress Wale says Egypt beat Igbo. That's what some of them began to say. You find that in H.F. Marshall's intelligence report that in 1940 some of them were suggesting that, but the people did not agree with it because they were still talking, they were still sharing their own history. It's called the received traditions, right? The story of the people. Not whenever I talk about Bini or any other people, even if any group, I try to tell you the story from the people's perspective, not from what I think the story is. It's disrespectful to do that. With Ondo, with different places, it will stay in Oyo and determine people's history for them. How now? But it doesn't mean that the book is not good. I like to tell people that, and this is what I'm going to end. The book, History of the Yoruba, I saw a video, somebody sent me a video, I didn't respond to it because I don't know how to say, I don't know how to say without sounding, unless I'm doing a video on it. Some things are better said than written. That book can be divided into 4. History of Yoruba by Samuel Johnson, into 4. The first part has to do with grammar and language, names, traditions of Yoruba people. It's beautiful. The second part has to do with the origin of Yoruba people. It is not beautiful. Let's talk about Odùduwà, Ife, all those things. Baba was just quoting this. The Baba quoted Clapperton, quoted Sultan Bello. They're just making things up. And they're writing Ife history without Ife tradition, which is not how it is done. The third part has to do with your history. Which is good. The fourth part had to do with the events that were happening in his own days. That's history for us, but right? Contemporary, that's what I'm looking for. Contemporary events, the events of his own time, that's the fourth part. The first part is great. The third part is great. The fourth part is great. It's only the second part that is not good. And because it is a very important part of the history, there's no way you understand history holistically, and it will not make you feel as if you are condemning the book. But I want to be very careful to say that the book is not, it's rubbish. It's not. When it talks about Yoruba traditions, Yoruba names, the things we do, how we used to name people, how we didn't used to have surnames in the past, how we had, you had your first name, and then you have Oriki and things like that. Those things are right. The counting, all those grammar, all those things, correct. The one about Oyo history is an Oyo man himself anyway. The one about Oyo history, he was correct. By the way, I read young people that do content, please, Emma Kaweo. One said he had read few pages and he was angry, and he said it was because he was a Christian that he came to rewrite it because he's a Christian. I'm like, it has nothing to do with religion. He was actually doing it because he was more loyal to his own subgroup. He's an Oyo man. Samuel Johnson just sounds like one Oyibo name. He's an Oyo man. Interestingly, he was not even born in Yoruba land. He was born in Sierra Leone. His parents had been taken as slaves. They got married. He was born abroad. And then it was also that period where they were trying to rediscover this old greatness of Oyo. They were just making things up as they went along. Anyway, the point is, the history of Oyo that he wrote is correct. The contemporary events that he talked about, he was right. The first part was good. It's just that part that has to do with the origins of Yoruba, who Ife was, who Odudua was, all those things. Baba, or Big Bimomeje, all those things, it is not history. But we also have to be careful not to say that throw the baby away with the bathwater. 3/4 is not bad. Abi, if out of 4 you got 3, you tried. And that's why when you read A History of the Yoruba People by Professor Stephen Banji Akintoye, he said, now we must respectfully set aside the Johnsonian hypothesis. We must respectfully set it aside. Because, for instance, we're talking about, I'll give an example. Hey, Jesus. I like this gist though. It'd be like say our gist, we're talking Yoruba history. I kind of like, he was talking about Odudua. He was giving us different things. He quoted Sultan Bello about the fact that Sultan Bello said that Yoruba people were from Yaktan, from Canaan. It was Sultan Bello, the grandfather of Amadu Bello, Sadano of Sokoto, that wrote that history. All these Yoruba people and Middle East did not come from Yoruba land. It came from Sultan Bello, who, by the way, to be clear, was a scholar and a writer. And the documents he wrote, he gave to Clapperton. Hugh Clapperton was an explorer, and some of the things that Sultan Bello said, he then wrote it in his own book, reproduced those things. It's not even Samuel Johnson that made those things up, although he also made his own up, but the old Mecca Kinika, even he, oh boy, I'm trying not to condemn him. That's what I'm trying to do, and it's a lot of work. I think I should read that part before we go. Jesus is Lord. I'm always saying the last book. Give me a second. I want to read you that bit where he mentioned we must respectfully set it aside. And I think when we do that, what we're doing is we are acknowledging the work of our elders, because you know things now does not mean that everybody who wrote before you should just throw them away. I don't think it's also fair. I think we should acknowledge greatness, and there's a lot of things that you can learn from Samuel Johnson's work. But the part I'm talking about was when he was talking about Odudua. Everything that Samuel Johnson was saying about Odudua was foreign. Was that from Mecca or from Egypt or from Middle East? So Baba, and to be fair, this was in the late 19th century. A lot of people at the time were trying to. So here's the context of the history that they wrote. The context was that period of time, Egyptology was the rave, right? People were beginning to study Egyptology. That thing is what you still have with Black Americans today. They'll be shouting, Kemet, we was kings and queens. It began in the 19th century. People were studying Egyptology, right? And they were like, these guys were black. These guys were this. It's not like we are nobody. We are also something, that kind of thing. And then you also have the oh, Jesus Christ. I'm talking, I'm thinking at the same time. So, you also have the stuff that Clapperton had shared with, I found it. That Clapperton had shared, right, from Sultan Bello. So all these things were out there. So it made it look as if everything was from the East, everything was foreign. I'm going to read something to you from this book, A History of the Yoruba by Stephen Banji Akintoye. It says here, fortunately, while much effort was being expended in following Johnson's ideas about the beginnings of Yoruba history, there existed all around us in Ife and other parts of Yoruba land an enormous wealth of traditions, as well as evidence in the Yoruba political system and surviving practices and rituals about Odudua and his era. Ultimately, listen to this, ultimately, a different direction in the study of Yoruba history developed as part of a more scientific study of African history in general. You know what? I don't think this would be cool if I don't go back just a bit. I know where I'm going, but some of the things I said, I want to read it in the book before you think that what you're making come up with it. Do I have the time? Yoruba teaches, Prof, maybe you should use next week to talk about Bini and Ife connection. We can do it. We can do it. Don't worry, we have the materials already. We don't have to go to the market. We have tons of them. But let me read this to you. In much of the effort made during the 20th century to study this revolutionary era in Yoruba history, it's just like a couple of pages and then we'll call it a day. In about the 10th century, the storm that has slowly gathered over the political life of Ife burst. The result, according to all versions of the large wealth of Ife traditions, was a long period of conflict and turmoil and so on and so forth. Let's just jump to the part we're going to. Of the human actors in this revolution, the greatest, according to all the traditions, was Oduduwa. So monumental was the role of this man that probably even from as early as his own lifetime, popular traditions and legends elevated him to the awesome pedestal of father of the Yoruba race and founder of the monarchical system, which thenceforth became their typical system of government. His successors deified him, and subsequent generations transposed him all the way back to the very beginning of creation and crowned him as the first human to walk the earth, the progenitor of the Yoruba race. One day, what I just read right now, that paragraph, we can discuss that paragraph for a month. It's deep, but we'll go back to it later some other time. In much of the effort made during the 20th century to study this revolutionary era in Yoruba history, the general direction was to look for Oduduwa's roots in some distant foreign land outside of Africa and to bring him as a conquering foreign prince to Ife. That direction was initiated by the Reverend Samuel Johnson in his famous The History of the Yorubas, which was written in the final years of the 19th century and first published in 1921. Why was because, so he wrote the book, finished in the 1890s, and then they sent the book to be published. Then his brother Obadiah Johnson then put together his manuscripts and rewrote some things and now published the book in 1921. So in reality, it's not actually what he wrote that was published. Some things happened to have been changed or added to because the original transcripts got lost in transit, according to Wetin Oyibo tell Obadiah, Samuel Johnson's brother. Let's just read it. Let's go on. That direction was initiated by the Reverend Samuel Johnson. What direction? The direction of looking for Oduduwa in some foreign distant land. That direction was initiated by the Reverend Samuel Johnson in his famous The History of the Yorubas, which was written in the final years of the 19th century and was first published in 1921. According to Samuel Johnson, Oduduwa was leader of a group which left Arabia in the Middle East as a result of clashes between Islam and the traditional polytheistic religion of the place, and which finally found its way to Yoruba land and established itself over Ife. Until deep into the 20th century, some of the best minds available to us in historical scholarship took up Johnson's lead and followed it. And therefore, it is important that we briefly examine the roots of Johnson's ideas concerning Yoruba history. A son of Yoruba emigrants, liberated slaves returning home from Sierra Leone in the 19th century, Samuel Johnson was educated for the service of the church. After elementary education in the Church Missionary Society, CMS Mission School in Ibadan, he was sent for secondary education to the CMS Training School in Abeokuta, where he studied from the age of 16 until he graduated at 20 in 1866. He then returned to teach in Ibadan until 1882, after which he repeatedly featured in the peacemaking missions seeking to end the wars among various Yoruba states in the last 2 decades of the 19th century. This is why I said when it comes to the contemporary issues of his time, he was spot on. All those kriji thing, he was one of those people that helped settle the matter, which is why I said don't throw the baby away with the bathwater. The book, The History of the Yorubas, which he started to write in these years, was completed in 1897. At the training institution in Abeokuta, he had schooled under a German teacher named G.F. Buehler, who, while training his students as church workers, gave them a very solid grounding in ancient history, the history of Egypt, Babylon, Greece, and Rome. From such beginnings, Johnson developed a strong interest in the history and mythology of the Middle East. Moreover, Johnson's Yoruba of the late 19th century was increasingly affected by the growth of Islam and Christianity, two world-shaping products of the Middle East. In particular, with Islam came the knowledge of Western Sudanese myths and legends through the writings of Muslims of the Western Sudan, including Hausa land, especially some of the writings of Sultan Bello of Sokoto, which contained some Sudanese myths about Yoruba origins. Above all, the 19th century was in Europe the golden age of the study of the history and civilization of ancient Egypt. The ancient Egyptian writings had just been deciphered, and the expanding knowledge of the wonders of ancient Egypt was creating great excitement in the world of scholarship. That's why I said it was the rave at the time. The writings of the emerging class of literature Yorubas were commonly laced with Egyptian and Middle Eastern references, analogies, and mythology, a practice apparently regarded then as a mark of erudition. As a reading of the Lagos newspaper of the time will abundantly show. All these influences combined to shape much of Johnson's The History of the Yorubas, and they account for his linking of all important details of early beginnings of Yoruba history to the Middle East. Thus, Oduduwa became a personage from the Middle East, and Oromiyo's migration northwards to the Niger country became a journey with the Middle East as its intended destination. In other words, when Oromiyo left Ife and went northwards, as far as Oga was concerned, it was going to the Middle East, even though the man was just going to Oyo. So he says, Oromiyo's migration northwards to the Niger country became a journey with the Middle East as its intended destination. Indeed, the influence of Middle Eastern mythology pervades most of Johnson's early history chapters, all the way from his preface. In contrast, his accounts of the history, listen to this. In contrast, his accounts of the history of the Oyo Empire were assembled from oral evidence he collected in places like Oyo and Ibadan, where memories of the disintegration of that empire were still quite fresh. While his accounts of late 19th century history were product of his own eyewitness observations of many of the events. In other words, he's writing about Oyo Empire, but he's writing based on the oral tradition of Oyo people and Ibadan folks. Some of them were moved from Oyo, but he's taking the story from them. But with Ife and Oduduwa, he's just making things all based on other influences rather than just taking up pick up a bus. Just go to Ife and ask questions now. What's your history? Not to be looking for Western Sudan, Egypt, Saudi Arabia. So when it came to story about Oyo Empire, he went to the people, collected their own story. When it came to story about what was happening in his time, he wrote exactly what he was an eyewitness of. Fortunately, while much effort was being expended in following Johnson's ideas about the beginnings of Yoruba history, there existed all around us in Ife and other parts of Yoruba land an enormous wealth of traditions as well as evidence in the Yoruba political system and surviving practices and rituals about Oduduwa and his era. Ultimately, a different direction in the study of Yoruba history developed as part of a more scientific study of African history in general, which focused on the indigenous evidence as well as other source material from the reconstruction of early Yoruba history. What do you go for? Indigenous evidence, like he did with Oyo. So he says, consequent, I'll tell that again. So a different direction in the study of Yoruba history developed as part of more scientific study of African history in general, which focused on the indigenous evidence as well as other source material for the reconstruction of early Yoruba history. Consequent upon these efforts, we now stand able, this is one of the most brilliant things in this book. I love it. Consequent upon these efforts, we now stand able to lay aside with respect the Johnsonian hypothesis about the origins of Oduduwa and of the Yoruba. All who study the history of Ife and of the Yoruba people are now generally agreed that the great political changes which began in Ife in about the 10th century were indigenous in their origin, in their unfolding, and in their dramatis persona, it is on the soil of Yoruba land that Oduduwa was born and raised. It is only in that soil that his roots can be found. But the point, what Paul says is that he said, consequent upon this effort, we now stand able to lay aside with respect the Johnsonian hypothesis. With respect, we will lay it aside. Why? Because he went before us, he paved the way for us, he said some things that we're building on, but we can't just take everything hook, line, and sinker, especially when you know the sources of what he's saying. It has nothing to do with the people of the land. It's the same thing to do with Ondo story, which is how we got here. How on earth could Pukuku have been from Oyo when Oyo is younger than Ondo? You know what? Maybe we'll do the Benin thing that the person asked for in the comment section. I like Yoruba history. I like to tell you about it, but some people just say he's making it up. So that's why I like going back to it. And if you notice, everything I said, you find this in the book. And this is not the only book, by the way. If you read The Yoruba, A New History by Professor Akinwumi Ogundiran, you find some of these things there. Again, this is not to say that the book by Samuel Johnson is, we don't want it, just straight away. It's just about Oyo. To be fair, it's Oyo-centric. And he was an Oyo man. You know the funny thing about when people write Ife history, I love it when people write in Ife history are not Ife people. And I'll tell you why. It's not because we don't talk about Ife history because we are from Ife. We talk about Ife history because we are all from Ife. In other words, it's not about my town, it's about the fact that it's our home. That's the beauty. And that's why I like it. There's this thing that there's a pride that it's our home. Not to be changing things because you want to create a new idea for yourself. Akinwumi Ogundiran is from Ibadan. Bajakinto is Ekiti. But we need to, I think we'll begin to have sessions like this. I kind of like what we did today, but we will make it more structured. So I'll prepare, I'll just read those books. User says, with respect, we are laying aside the Samuel Johnson accounts on Yoruba history forever. No, not like that too. He didn't say lay aside his Yoruba history. Lay aside the Johnsonian hypothesis as far as the origins of the Yoruba people and Oduduwa are concerned. His Oyo history is correct. And I'm not an Oyo man. Why do I know it's correct? How do I know it's correct? Because he's writing oral traditions of the Oyo people. Right? His stuff about Kiriji War is as if he's writing newspaper because news article because it was there. It was part of the whole process. It was one of the people that was trying to help settle the fight between, the fight amongst us as Yoruba people. So he was there. He's reporting what he saw. But when it comes to the origin of Yoruba people, all those can be bimo meje, bimo ikan popo, ikan. Thank you for listening. Let us go home. It's almost 10 p.m. I promise we're going to have. Should I promise? Do you want us to leave this? I won't try. I want us to go to Benin, or I don't want to talk about your history for now because people are just being funny. People are being funny, and it's ridiculous. I like to talk about your history. I love your history. And that's the thing. See, once you carry yourself like this, you become like this. Tó bá ti gbé rẹ̀ báyìí lọ, Ọlọ́run ti ṣe báyìí o. Ọlọ́run ti ṣe báyìí. Tó bá ti wá sọ rẹ̀ báyìí, àwọn àwẹ̀ báyìí. Do you know Oyo had an orchestra? The king had an orchestra in Oyo Ile. I want to talk about Oyo with pride. Not when I talk about it now, somebody will be like, hey, it's because it's from Ife. All those nonsense, I don't have time. Oyo is great. Benin is great. Ife is great. Ibadan is great. All these people are great. It's just that once you begin to tell everybody that you're bigger than them, they will cut you to size. Like Oga Farabale. But I respect all Yoruba kingdoms and kings, including the Oba of Benin. Like someone's writing, let's do Benin, I beg. Let's see. Do you want us to finish our world trial first? Should we finish our world trial? You guys are tired. Okay, I'm a machine labo. Yeah, we'll mix it up. We'll mix it up. So we'll find a way. Oh boy, that's Bosnia one of stage here. Me for bang on your jaw. But to be honest, when I talk about these things, whether it's Oyo or Benin or anywhere, it's from a place of we are one, right? I'm not one with Benin people. And I think your Bible should also understand. We're going to talk about this thing maybe next week, since people are asking for it. I'm not saying your Bible are one with Benin people, though. Your Bible are one with Benin monarchy. The connection I have with Benin is through their king, not the people. There is a group, by the way, that Yoruba also, who went with Romeo to Benin. They are also still there. And they create themselves Lamogun, Lahuhe. They are connected to Ife. Those are the connections, not the people of the land. I always like to say, because say we're not connected. I'm not connected to the people. But that monarchy, that's the son of Romeo. For last, Obagodo of Ile-Ife founded Benin. He founded the Godomi Godo. Benin came in Obaewedo. You know, let's have this session next week. If I start again, I was supposed to leave at 9 o'clock. This is 9:47. We say one gist. You can't ask book questions. I thought we're just going to be gisting. J-Man, thank you. I didn't want to go into it. That Ẹkáàbọ Treaty was what happened when Ewedo got into Benin. Kilorúkọ bíi tí Ọ̀rànmíyàn dé dúró yìí o. It's not Osama Adena of the Chiefs. I'll tell you. He called the place Benin and so on and so forth. But what is called Benin today, he didn't even get in. Thank you, J-Man. He called the place Benin. They named the place Benin, but if you don't put Benin, and it was there for about 2 years. It wasn't there for very long. It was about 2 years, and then he left his seed. Those men are powerful, potent, vile men. Just drop a seed. Mama lead their way. My dropped the seed. Went on your mind, drop seeds. That one he dropped Ajaka, Dada, then he dropped Shogo. Thank you, Jema. Thank you, Guntoye Uselu. That was Usen is a different town. That's with it's another story on its own. Anyway, let's see how we're going to have this conversation. I wanted to finish this one trial thing. I want you to hear. You don't want to hear Nigerian politics again. This makes you like Yoruba and ancient history, but we'll do it. I'm a Posha, so no problem. No problem. Anyway, before we go, I want to reiterate something. Every Yoruba author has contributed something to the knowledge of who we are. And even when we have discovered new stuff and we understand, that, okay, they made some mistakes in some things, we should be careful not to just throw everything away with the bathwater and say things like, oh, Samuel Johnson is this, is that. Read with open heart. And I think one of the problems we have, generally speaking, is that people read one book and either expect that everything they're looking for is in that one book. So they say things like, if it's not in that book, it doesn't exist. Like one clown was telling me today that So because you read one book, it means that everything in this world is going to be inside that book. So you're asking for too much. Okay. Even if you have a book that says a lot about a thing, most likely they will refer to other books. That's how it works. That's how research works. That's how scholarship works. The other part is that there's something in these books that you can pick and you can quote that thing. It doesn't mean that everything in that book is correct. But we have to be careful also not to say, okay, because I don't like that thing, no, that's Samuel Johnson, no, it's nonsense, it's Oyo. No, be like that. What you can do is that you can, with respect, set aside the Johnsonian hypothesis. With respect. Thank you for being here. We'll have these sessions next week by the grace of God. How we're going to mix our lower and Romeo. God will teach us. All our core mercy. Follow it. I saw your writing in the comment section. I mean, Romeo was. I mean, it was a man's man. It was a happening guy. So if he's going everywhere and dropping seeds, I mean, I celebrate grace. I mean, look at all the seed. Bible says your seed shall be great on the earth. His seeds are great on the earth. What are you talking about? So I'm happy for his time. Oh, I'm not saying people should do it too. I'm talking to Empress. We're saying, shaking my head. For his time, I mean, think about it. Benin, Oyo, then he went back home, went back to Ife. So while he was king, one seed was king in Benin, another seed was king in Oyo, and the father was back home. It is what it is. I like him. He's my ancestor. So why on earth would I not like him? I celebrate grace. Someone says, you go beneath the dash them, and now you have to. People is always kama obviously kama bossy. Be fruitful and multiply. Please, if you are listening to me, don't multiply that Daniel. We have come to the end of today's session. By the way, if you want to support this live stream, we have these sessions every weekday, Mondays to Fridays. And once in a while, we'll talk about people supporting. And it will be nice to have you support. By the way, we're working on a project. I don't know when it's going to eventually happen, but it's something we've created a structure for it now. So hopefully very soon it's going to get started. I want to get a place like the rain that fell today now, so that no matter the rain, you will not hear pim. The sound will be a bit clearer. And a lot of things I want to do, begin to put out. There are some things that will be coming out this year by the grace of God. I'm working on some things. I'm even taking some courses. There's something I'm working on. When it's out, you will see it, I promise. But the primary thing is we're trying to get a studio to make sure we don't have all those issues. So if you want to support, please reach out. I'm going to put up an account account number. Account number. I'll put it out. So if you'd like to support us, please, guys, if you're on TikTok, please power tap. This is showing in activity now. Oh dear. Okay. So we do have the sessions every weekday, Mondays to Fridays. It looks like next week is going to be hot based on popular demand. I've not talked about Benin over 1 year. And like I always say, whenever I talk about it, it's from a place of love, because it's family. Okay, it's not about superiority. Me, folks who talk about superiority a lot are actually inferior. So I'm not saying somebody's better than somebody's bad, somebody's terrible. We're just saying this until if anybody now comes and insults, I will send you home. It's just I'll now send you home with books. I'll tell you your history. But on a normal day, We're just talking with love and facts. Thank you very much. Oguntoye says we must copy Oromiyan. What an inspiration. Which inspiration? One copy man go and conquer lands first before he start sowing seed. He conquered lands, he fought, he was a warrior. He's not known for seed sowing. He's known for being a warrior and a conqueror. You know, when Benin tell you that they went to Ife and sent somebody, we in Ife also say that is actually the respectful way of saying what really happened. I'll just leave it there. When they tell you that they send people to Ife to go and look for to send another lead, another king, they now send people from Ife to go and send another king, that we now send them to, that's a respectful way of explaining what really happened. What really happened was not that, but we agreed to have that story out of respect. Maybe we'll talk about what really happened. And by the way, it's not like I just discovered it. It's a great discovery. No, it's always been there. It's always been there. It's just that surely in Yoruba, Tony Kaluku, Bati Mayare, no problem. Or to Bati is a move mad. That's what they not tell you the reason. It's not like they didn't know the reason, or they're just respecting you. But so we're like our fathers in that sense. Anyway, we'll get into that next week by the grace of God. I could get into it right now because I'm actually excited about it, but got to go. Thank you for being here and thank you for supporting. If you like this live, or you shared, or you tapped, or you wrote something in the comment section, you engaged one way or another, whether on TikTok, on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter, and on Twitch, thank you very much for your support. Thank you for being part of the session. Thank you. May God bless you. Gifts, but trust me, I appreciate them. I don't usually stop because I don't want to break the flow of thought, but I really do appreciate gifts. I love gifts. So thank you very much for gifting me and for supporting. If you'd like to be part of our supporters and part of our project, please use the bank details up here, this one, the GT account, and your support will go along with helping us do those things. God bless you. I'm sitting in the comment section, but yeah, we'll get into all those things by the grace of God. Thank you very much. Great time he said something very powerful. Baba Keru in Ruabaje. So that she can Keru. But Teruba sọ fún ọmọ ilé, tó máa sọ fún ọmọ wípé òun nílé. Ha Keru aṣọ ẹ̀tàn ẹrú fún ẹrú. Wà ní ṣe ní síjà àkọ́kọ́ máa kọ́ sọ bí gbà pé torí ọmọ ìyá kan náà ṣálájẹ́ ìjà ló dé tó rìn dòwe a máa ṣe normal wọn ti tẹ́wọ́ tó wà lọ kọjá yẹ̀yẹ̀ wá pé wà á rí bí kí ló ń ṣe a máa ṣe táwọn kí ló ń ṣẹlẹ̀. I hope I can do that thing if I ever have to, maybe in drama. Kí ló ń ṣẹlẹ̀. Okay. No, not to drag them. Adamorisha. I'm not trying to drag anybody. If it's about drag, I won't do this stuff. Because they just come and start fight. See, they left me alone for more than 1 year now. They don't talk to me. They don't disturb me anymore. If they start now, they start disturbing me. But to be honest, right, I think it's important to also talk about this so that we don't leave this single narrative of lies. We've got to go now. Thank you very much, my able moderator in the comment section telling me it's 10 p.m. We're going to have the anthem, the anthems actually, Nigerian anthem and the Yoruba anthem. Please take a listen and enjoy.
be a symbol that truth and justice reign. It moves all battle honored, and this we count as gain. To hand unto our children a banner without name. Oh, God of all creation, grant this our one request. Help us to build a nation when no man is oppressed. And so with peace and plenty, Nigeria may be blessed. Nigeria may be Iṣẹ́ wa fúnlẹ̀ wá, fún ilẹ̀-èdè wa. Tàgbéga, tàgbéga, tàgbéga fáyé rí. Ìgbàgbọ́ wa ni pé láti bẹ̀rù làbọ̀ mọ́. Ká ṣiṣẹ́, ká ṣiṣẹ́, ká jọlá. Ìṣọ̀kan àtòmìnira ni ẹ jẹ́ ká máa lépa. Tẹ̀síwájú fọ̀pọ̀ ire àtòhun tó dára. Ọmọ ògbàdìde bọ́ sípò ẹ̀tọ́ rẹ̀. Ìwọ ni ìmọ́lẹ̀ gbogbo adúláwọ̀.
Àwa ni ìmọ́lẹ̀ ògo adúláwọ̀, ìmọ́lẹ̀ wọ̀ ní wọ́kùn lágbára Ọlọ́run. Ilẹ̀ Yorùbá ò ní bàjẹ́, Nàìjíríà náà ò ní bàjẹ́. Nǹkan tá a bá lọ dáwọ́lé ó máa yọrí sí rere ni. Gbogbo lọ́wọ́ yọjú orí, a máa yọjú àwọn tó ń gbìyànjú àti fà á sílẹ̀ lọ ni. Yóò mọ̀ dáa fún wa náà ni, yóò dáa fún ilẹ̀ wa, yóò dáa fún orílẹ̀-èdè náà lágbára Ọlọ́run. Meanwhile, while I was jeje singing anthem, I saw people writing things in the comment section. If you want to bring popcorn and drinks next week, feel like say you are getting ready for Wahala. That's the issue. But I just want us to have like a conversation based on historical facts. And I'm not sure that's why you're saying what you're saying, but we'll see how it goes. But thank you very much for being part of today's session, and may God bless you. May God bless the work of your hands. May God bless our nation, Yoruba land. May God bless this country, Nigeria. May God bless everything that we're connected to have a lovely weekend. And by the way, those who wanted to come up, you came up with, I saw the request later, but please try and understand, I really have to go. It's past 10. I promise next week we'll find a way to make sure that we're able to get you to share your thoughts. Thank you very much for being part of today's session. Okay, so do have a lovely YouTube and see. They're also saying we'll come back to Awo because you want some bass boots. It is well. I'm not quite much. Thank you for being here. Do have a lovely weekend. I'll see you on Monday, 4 p.m. 4 p.m. if you're time West African time. Do have a great weekend. God bless you. Odaro.